I never thought I'd feel invisible in my own family. Yet here I am, standing at the edge of a room full of people who barely notice I exist. For 8 years, I've built my digital marketing agency from scratch, pouring sleepless nights and endless energy into something that's mine, something real. But at home, it feels like none of it matters. I'm Cassandra Collins, 34, a self-made entrepreneur and the family's silent provider. Last month, I wired $3,000 to cover my sister Lisa's tuition. Again, no thank you, no acknowledgement, just Adam, my stepmother, barely sparing me a glance across the dinner table. She favors her biological kids openly, treating me like a guest in the very house I helped keep afloat. Dad, George, just sits there, avoiding confrontation like it's a contagious disease. I watch Adam dismiss me, mock me even, like the time she sneered at my business in front of guests, saying women can't lead companies. The words stung, but I smiled and nodded, pretending it was nothing more than stress on her part. Still, inside, a quiet fire burns. I have something Adam doesn't know about: properties in my name, investments I made without a word, quietly securing my future. Yet, for now, I hold back. I'm the responsible one, the peacemaker, the one who keeps the family together while feeling more alone than ever. I remember the first time I truly realized I was the outsider. I was 12, sitting at the dinner table when Adam announced Lisa would be getting a brand new SUV for her 16th birthday. The way she said it, like it was a gift to the world, not a privilege reserved for her own flesh and blood. I was told to be grateful for my old bike. Dad smiled awkwardly, trying to smooth things over with, "It's just Adam's way." But I felt the weight of that moment settle in my chest, cold and heavy. I was the stepchild, the other daughter. At school, I heard Adam brag about Lisa's achievements, but never once about mine, even when I won the science fair. One memory still cuts deep: my 18th birthday party. Adam invited only her family, dismissing my friends as if they weren't important enough to be there. I pretended it didn't wound me, telling myself maybe this was tough love, that one day she'd see me for who I truly am. But the pattern was clear. Adam's favoritism was deeply rooted, reinforced by Dad's silence. I was always compared unfavorably to Lisa, and every slight chipped away at my sense of belonging. I began to understand that no matter how hard I tried, I was never really part of their world. Over the years, I gave everything I could to keep the family afloat. I've contributed more than $150,000 toward the mortgage, tuition, and surprise medical bills. Twice, I canceled vacations just to cover expenses when Lisa had surgery. Last Christmas, I even slipped Adam $5,000 to help with renovations she never mentioned publicly. Daniel, my husband, worries I'm taken for granted, asking why I keep giving without ever receiving thanks. I want to believe things will change, that my sacrifices will finally be seen. Meanwhile, Lisa enjoys privileges I only dream of: public praise, lavish gifts, and Adam's constant approval. Adam openly calls my business a hobby project, brushing off all my hard work as insignificant. What no one knows is that the family home and 2 rental properties are legally in my name. I quietly secured them over time through the funds I contributed, a secret I guard closely. Daniel supports me, understanding the delicate balance I maintain. But it's exhausting to keep giving without recognition, especially when I'm expected to stay silent, to keep the peace. I hold on to hope because giving up feels like losing the only chance I have to belong, to finally be valued as more than just the stepdaughter or the provider. The day Adam humiliated me at my cousin's wedding is etched painfully in my mind. I mentioned my agency's recent client win to a group of relatives, hoping for a sliver of support or acknowledgement. Instead, Adam scoffed loudly, her voice dripping with disdain. "That little business of yours? Women can't lead, Cassandra. Maybe stick to what you know." The room froze. I felt every pair of eyes shift uncomfortably, some relatives snickering behind polite hands. My cheeks flushed with a burning shame I couldn't hide. I forced a smile and muttered, "She's just stressed." Then I excused myself quietly, retreating to the garden where Daniel found me. He wrapped his arms around me, but I gritted my teeth and told him, she didn't mean it. Inside, though, a tiny seed of doubt took root. For the first time, I refused to engage further that night, choosing silence over confrontation. It was a small act of defiance, but enough for Adam to notice, and I could feel the shift in her eyes. Something in me stirred, a quiet strength I hadn't fully acknowledged before. The hurt was there, but so was a growing resolve. I wasn't going to let this be the end of my story. Her attack was swift and ruthless, as if she'd been waiting for the moment I dared to step back. The whispers started almost immediately, like poison dripping through the grapevine. Too ambitious, trying to outshine the family, she murmured to relatives during gatherings, a sly smirk, barely hidden behind polite smiles. I caught the way my own aunt's eyes flicked away when she said, "Maybe you're just too sensitive, Cass." That sting was sharper than any open insult. Messages from other family members grew colder, distant. Once warm conversations reduced to clipped responses, or silence altogether. Daniel noticed the shift too. His concern was a quiet anchor amidst the growing storm. I found myself questioning everything. Was I really the problem? Maybe I was overreacting, too fragile in a family that demanded strength. I tried to talk to Daniel one night, voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm the one tearing us apart. He shook his head, but his silence told me he didn't have an answer either. The gaslighting was relentless, Adam painting herself as the victim, twisting every truth until I wasn't sure what was real. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality, surrounded by people who once mattered now turning away, convinced of a narrative that cast me as the antagonist. My own reflection seemed foreign. Was this fractured version of me a creation of their cruelty or a flaw I'd been blind to? Each day became a battle to hold on to my identity, to refuse to shrink beneath the weight of their judgment. Yet the isolation was suffocating. Family gatherings, once a source of tentative peace, became minefields where every glance and whisper felt loaded with accusation. I caught Adam watching me like a hawk, waiting for a misstep. The warmth I once believed in had turned bitter, and I was left clinging to the fragments of who I was beneath the storm. Desperation edged in quietly, uninvited but persistent. I wanted to believe we could still salvage something, some semblance of the family I'd always hoped for. But with each passing day, the line between victim and villain blurred further, and I feared the version of myself that emerged was not the girl who'd fought to build a future, but a ghost drifting farther from home. Determined to stop the spiral before it swallowed us whole, I arranged a meeting with Adam and Dad in the living room, hoping that calm conversation could mend what anger had fractured. The air was thick with tension when I sat down, my hands trembling slightly as I laid out the facts I'd kept close. My financial contributions, my tireless work, and my genuine desire for respect and unity. I want us to be a family that supports each other, not tears each other down, I said, voice steady despite the knot in my chest. Adam's eyes shimmered with tears, but the softness was a mask. Her voice cracked like a well-rehearsed script, accusing me of trying to break the family apart, a betrayal that shocked even Dad into silence. She threatened to rethink her role if I didn't stop causing friction. George's nod was weak, his gaze avoiding mine as if confronting her truth was too much to bear. Even my uncle, the family mediator, sided with her, dismissing my concerns as overreaction, his words like a dagger twisting in my resolve. I left that room feeling hollow, the hope I'd carried now crumbling beneath the weight of indifference and manipulation. The rift between us had grown wider, deep and unbridgeable, and goodwill alone felt powerless against the walls Adam had built. The family I'd dreamed of was slipping through my fingers, leaving only cold echoes in its place. The charity gala was supposed to be my moment, a chance to shine among peers, to share the journey that had brought me here. Instead, Adam orchestrated my unraveling with ruthless precision. As I prepared to speak on the panel, she stood in the crowd, voice loud and cruel. "Remember when you were drowning in debt, Cassandra? That wasn't leadership. That was luck." The room fell into a stunned silence, jaws tightening, eyes darting awkwardly. Daniel's hand found mine, his grip taut with barely concealed anger. But Adam didn't stop there. She insinuated I'd misused family funds, planting poisonous seeds of doubt among investors and friends. I could feel the heat of their gazes, weighing the whispered accusations against the woman they thought they knew. The humiliation was public and raw, striking at the heart of everything I'd built, not just emotionally, but professionally. My reputation, my work, the foundation of my independence was under siege. The sting was unbearable. It wasn't just about pride, it was about survival. I saw the way doors closed, invitations waned, and trusted connections flickered uncertainly. Adam's cruelty was calculated, a weapon wielded to break me down in front of the very people I valued most. The gala ended in a blur, my voice hollow, the applause forced and faint. I knew then that this war wasn't just personal. It was a deliberate campaign to dismantle the life I had fought so hard to create. In a final, desperate bid to find peace, I reached out to Adam with an olive branch. I offered to help her with budgeting, hoping that sharing my expertise might ease the tension between us. "I just want us to be honest and support each other," I said quietly, eyes searching hers for a flicker of understanding. The moment held a fragile promise, a chance to rewrite our story, but she rejected me without hesitation, cold and dismissive. "I don't need your help. You've always been an outsider," she spat, the words sharp and final. When I tried to express how much her rejection hurt, she laughed, a cruel, hollow sound, and walked away without a backward glance. The sting cut deeper than any previous slight. This wasn't just favoritism anymore. It was outright dismissal, a refusal to acknowledge my worth. I turned to Daniel, voice barely audible. I did everything I could. For the first time, I truly accepted the painful truth. The family I longed for might never exist. The dream of belonging slipped away, leaving me to face the cold reality alone. Yet beneath the hurt, a quiet resolve began to take root. If they wouldn't see me as family, I would find my own path to peace, one forged not from their acceptance, but from my own strength. Rumors spread like wildfire, and suddenly, I was the villain in a story I didn't write. Whispers floated at family gatherings, hushed voices throwing around the word overstepped, as if I had trampled on sacred ground. Even Lisa, my sister, who once at least tolerated my presence, now avoided my gaze, her smiles replaced by a cold politeness. Adam thrived in this new narrative, seizing on my vulnerability and weaving a tale where I was the selfish one, the troublemaker, the outsider, disrupting the family peace. I sat with Daniel late into the night, his steady presence a lighthouse in the storm of rejection that battered me from every side. His hands in mine, his voice gentle but firm. "You're not the problem, Cass." But his words felt like a lifeline in a sea of doubt that was pulling me under. I found myself questioning everything. The self-doubt was relentless, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. Was I really too sensitive? Too ambitious? Maybe I was the one complicating a family that just wanted simplicity, harmony, and loyalty to their own. Maybe I'm the problem, I whispered to my reflection, eyes rimmed with unshed tears staring back in disbelief. The exhaustion wasn't just physical. It was a bone-deep weariness, a fatigue that settled in my chest and refused to leave. The silence in the house was suffocating, broken only by the distant chatter of relatives who no longer invited me into their circles. I could feel the invisible wall Adam had built, her eyes watching me like a hawk waiting for me to falter so she could pounce. There was a hollow ache beneath the surface of my pain, a numbness that dulled the fierce anger I might have once felt. Instead of rage, there was a quiet, relentless ache of abandonment. The isolation wrapped around me like cold silk, smooth but suffocating. I swallowed hard, holding tears behind clenched teeth because no one cared to see my pain. Not really. Even Dad, silent as ever, seemed to shrink away from any confrontation, his eyes darting away when I tried to speak. The house that once felt like a refuge now felt like a cage, and I was trapped inside with my own failing hopes. Yet, deep in the quiet corners of that despair, a small ember of resolve began to glow, almost imperceptible but growing steadily, a promise to myself that this wasn't the end. I remember the day of Dad's will reading like a wound reopened. The room was packed with family, their faces a blur of anticipation and thinly veiled curiosity. Adam stood tall, her voice cold as ice when she announced, "Dad has decided to exclude Cassandra from the family estate." The words hit me like a fist, sharp and unforgiving. Gasps echoed around me, and I caught Lisa's smug smile, the kind that said, "See? You don't belong here." George's eyes dropped to the floor, his shame more palpable than any words. Despite the years I spent funding the family home, the investments I made quietly, and the sacrifices I bore, my inheritance was wiped clean, redirected entirely to Adam's children. The ground crumbled beneath my feet. It wasn't just about the money. It was the final, brutal denial of my place in this family. In that moment, something inside me shattered, not into a frenzy of tears or screams, but into a cold, razor-sharp clarity, the hope I'd clung to, that maybe they'd see me as more than the stepdaughter, died a quiet death. I looked around the room and saw the betrayal in every face. The trust, once fragile, was now gone beyond repair. I was no longer just hurt. I was awakened. The naivety peeled away, leaving behind a strategist who understood the battlefield for what it was. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. The stakes were clear, and so was my purpose. This wasn't a loss. It was a reckoning. That night, alone in my office, the weight of everything settled heavily on my shoulders. I sifted through years of memories, every sacrifice, every quiet moment of support I gave that went unnoticed or was twisted against me. The pain was raw, a deep ache that lingered beneath the surface, but beneath it, anger began to simmer. This has always been their pattern, I thought bitterly. I just refused to see it. The veil lifted, revealing a family whose loyalty was elsewhere, a truth I had been too hopeful to accept. But amidst the grief, a startling realization surfaced. I had power. The properties in my name, the contracts, the legal papers I had guarded so carefully. These were not just documents. They were weapons and shields, the tools I had accumulated quietly, the foundation for my stand. I clenched my fists, staring at the papers spread before me. Never again, I vowed, voice low and fierce in the silence. Never again will I be invisible or powerless. The pain birthed something new inside me. Resolve sharpened by betrayal, a strategy forged in fire. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to take control. The family's rejection had ignited a hunger for justice, not reckless revenge. I would move carefully, deliberately, with every step calculated. The girl who had once sought their approval was gone. Now, there was only Cassandra Collins, ready to reclaim what was rightfully hers. I sat down with Daniel later that evening, the soft glow of the desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. I laid out the facts, the cold, hard truth of my legal standing, the properties titled in my name, the contracts that bound the family's financial interests, and the leverage I held quietly all these years. Daniel listened, his eyes steady but cautious. "This isn't just about money," I said, voice steady. "It's about respect, boundaries, and finally taking control of my life and my family's narrative." He nodded slowly, the weight of what I was proposing settling between us. There was no room for impulsive moves or emotional outbursts. This was a chess game, and we needed to think several steps ahead. We agreed to proceed carefully, crafting a plan that was both protective and assertive. Adam was the target, yes, but the goal wasn't destruction. It was accountability, and ultimately, justice. Daniel's support was my anchor. His calm strategy balanced my simmering fire. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of something close to hope. Not the naive hope that I might be accepted, but the fierce hope that I could reclaim my power on my own terms. Words had failed me, so now I would speak through actions. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun. I spread out every document I had gathered over the past weeks across my desk like a battlefield map. Each paper held a piece of the puzzle: mortgage statements, tuition receipts, bank transfers, all quietly proving what I had suspected. They relied on me far more than they ever admitted. Adam, with her polished facade, depended on my mortgage payments to keep the family home afloat, yet she publicly dismissed my contributions like they were invisible. Lisa's college tuition, funded in full by me, was her ticket to a future I wasn't allowed to share in. George, as usual, looked the other way, comfortable with my discretion and unwilling to confront the fractures I was forced to bear alone. I reached for my phone and called Mr. Levin, the family lawyer I trusted most, a man who never blinked at the complicated loyalties that tied us. He agreed to meet the next morning to review the contracts and agreements I'd quietly collected over the years. I felt a flicker of control returning as I documented every text message where Adam asked for money, but publicly denied receiving it. The duplicity was staggering, her words polished for public consumption, her actions beneath the surface quietly dependent on me. This wasn't just about money, it was about power, about the precarious balance that had always tipped in her favor. But now, that balance was mine to tip back. As I compiled my inventory, the quiet truth became undeniable. They needed me more than I needed them. The silent legal power I held was a weapon not for destruction, but for rebalancing the scales that had long been skewed. I wasn't planning revenge. I was reclaiming respect, dignity, and the rightful acknowledgement of my place in this fractured family. The weight of that realization settled deep in my chest, heavy but resolute. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was a force waiting to be recognized, and the groundwork was set. That night, I sat alone in my office, the hum of the city a faint backdrop to my thoughts. I whispered to myself, "They think they can erase me, but I'm the one holding all the cards." The quiet desperation that had clawed at me for months transformed into a cold, methodical resolve. This was no longer about survival. It was about strategy. I would dismantle the lies piece by piece, not with anger, but with undeniable truth. The scales were tipping, and I was the one holding the fulcrum. Behind my calm exterior, the wheels of preparation began to turn. I began the painstaking process of updating property deeds and changing passwords on accounts tied to family finances. Every action was deliberate, calculated to protect what was mine and to prepare for the moment when transparency would be demanded. I maintained normalcy in family dinners and gatherings, concealing the storm gathering beneath my composed surface. No one suspected the quiet revolution unfolding behind my steady eyes. Daniel was my anchor through the process, quietly gathering financial records and helping me sift through the mountain of data. We drafted legal notices with precision, letters that would soon deliver my intentions in a tone too formal to ignore. The tension between us was palpable, but my voice never wavered. "This is calm before the storm," I told Daniel one night, my fingers brushing over a stack of contracts. "They'll never see it coming." The weight of my words lingered in the air, a quiet warning. I was a time bomb, ticking softly, waiting for the moment to explode into undeniable truth. At family events, I kept my emotions locked away, careful not to betray the turmoil inside. Adam watched me closely, her eyes sharp and suspicious, but I met her gaze evenly. The silence between us was thick with unspoken threats, but I refused to be rattled. This was my moment to sharpen my focus, to build the case that would no longer allow her to manipulate the narrative. The calm was deceptive but necessary. I was preparing for war in the quietest way possible, with patience, precision, and unshakable resolve. While organizing financial records late one night, a discovery shattered my already fragile calm. Hidden deep in the paperwork, I found evidence of a staggering debt Adam had secretly accumulated, over $500,000, masked by layers of deception. Worse still, she had used family assets as collateral without my knowledge, endangering the home I had fought so hard to preserve. The realization hit me like a blow to the ribs. She wasn't just trying to push me out. She was dragging the entire family's legacy towards ruin. The weight of this secret explained so much. Her desperation, the venom in her attacks, the urgency behind her attempts to marginalize me. The debts were a ticking time bomb, and her reckless concealment threatened everything Dad had built. My stomach churned with a mix of anger and fear. This wasn't just personal anymore. It was urgent. I had to act, not just for myself, but for the family legacy that was now at risk because of her recklessness. A cold clarity washed over me as I stared at the documents. This discovery wasn't merely ammunition, it was a call to action. If I hesitated, the fallout could be catastrophic. I felt the familiar surge of determination, sharper and fiercer than before. "This ends now," I whispered, voice barely audible but resolute. The game had changed. and so had the stakes. For the first time, I understood the true extent of what was at risk and the power I wielded to protect what was rightfully mine. The next morning, I sent the first formal letters, clear, measured, and firm, notifying Adam that all financial support from me would cease until full transparency was established. I stopped the mortgage payments, halted tuition transfers, and made sure the family felt the ripple of my decision immediately. The quiet tension in the house thickened. I saw the flickers of confusion and concern on their faces, but none guessed the full scope of what was unfolding. Adam's reaction was a mixture of shock and fury, though she masked it behind a veneer of control. I watched her closely as she grappled with missed payments and tightening cash flow, the first real consequences of her deception. Daniel observed my composure with a mix of admiration and surprise. "You're ice cold, Cass," he said one evening, eyes wide with respect, methodical, in control, like a chess master. I nodded, feeling the weight of every calculated move I'd made. At family gatherings, my calm remained unbroken. I smiled politely, made small talk, and concealed the storm beneath layers of grace. The groundwork for the legal battle was laid out meticulously, and I was ready. The confrontation wasn't just coming, it was inevitable, but I would face it on my terms, armed with truth, patience, and a strength forged by years of betrayal. The fight had begun, and I was standing firm, unyielding, and prepared. The room was tense as we gathered in the lawyer's office, a sterile space that suddenly felt like a battlefield. I stood, documents in hand, my voice steady but firm, slicing through the thick silence. "These are the property deeds," I began, spreading the papers on the polished table. "The mortgage statements, the unpaid debts, everything Adam has been hiding." I locked eyes with her, watching the color drain from her face. "The home and assets are legally mine, and your financial mismanagement threatens everything." Adam's usual cold composure cracked, her lips tightening as the weight of my words settled on the room. George and Lisa, seated across from me, exchanged uncertain glances, caught between shock and disbelief. I felt the power shift beneath me, a subtle but undeniable reversal. No longer the overlooked stepdaughter, I was the one holding the cards now. The lawyer nodded solemnly, confirming my claims with quiet authority. The silence stretched, heavy with the truth I had unleashed. I drew a slow breath and set my boundaries clearly. From this moment, I expect respect. Debts must be settled, or legal action will follow. There was no room for negotiation. This wasn't just business. It was my reclamation. The air felt charged, the old family dynamics shattering like fragile glass around us. I saw Adam's eyes flicker with something I hadn't witnessed before: fear. Behind my calm exterior, my heart pounded fiercely. Years of invisibility, of quiet sacrifice, culminated in this moment of undeniable agency. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for recognition, for dignity. The room remained still, everyone digesting the seismic shift. I caught Daniel's encouraging nod from the corner, his presence grounding me. "You've underestimated me," I said, voice low but resolute. "That ends today." The finality in my tone left no doubt. I had taken control, and the family's fragile facade was cracking under the weight of truth. The days that followed were a relentless storm. Adam's web of deceit began to unravel as creditors called incessantly, their voices sharp and unforgiving. Each missed payment and mounting demand echoed like thunder in the quiet halls of the house. Despite her frantic, pleading calls to me, begging for leniency, promising change, I remained unmoved. Her voice, once commanding and assured, now trembled with desperation on the phone. I listened with guarded calm, my resolve unbroken. "I can't help you this time," I said firmly, the words a cold shield. "You need to face the consequences." Hanging up, I felt a strange mixture of pity and satisfaction. Justice was unfolding. Rumors began to weave through the family, whispers of debts and reckless spending that contradicted Adam's polished image. Some relatives reached out, their voices tinged with regret and apology, confessing their doubts and the distance they'd allowed. Lisa was quieter now, her smugness replaced by a hesitant curiosity. George avoided eye contact, but stopped dismissing me outright. Adam's influence waned visibly. Her carefully constructed empire was crumbling. I watched from a distance, maintaining my boundaries, knowing that any softness now would unravel everything I had fought for. The legal pressure was a checkmate, forcing truth into daylight and forcing reckoning where there had only been denial. Adam's final desolation manifested in bitter, desperate attempts to regain control. She resorted to emotional blackmail, accusing me of destroying the family and playing the victim. Her voice carried venom during our last tense encounters, trying to rally relatives to her side. But I was prepared for these attacks. Legal counsel stood ready, intercepting threats and slander. The public scenes she staged fell flat. Her manipulations no longer held power. Some family members stepped forward with genuine apologies, acknowledging their silence and the pain it caused me. I accepted a few, cautiously. Others I kept at arm's length, unwilling to reopen wounds. Adam's isolation deepened, her confident mask cracking to reveal desperation, and I remained unwavering. The battle was over. I had won. 6 months later, the tension that once defined my life had eased into something calmer. Peace. Not perfect, but real. The family home remained secure, its boundaries clear and respected. Daniel and I had grown stronger through the trials, forging a partnership grounded in trust and mutual strength. Adam faced lasting financial consequences and lost control. Her presence diminished but no longer a shadow over my life. I held no bitterness, only relief. Contact with the family was limited but respectful. Lisa reached out occasionally, tentative bridges in fragile waters. Sitting quietly in the evening light, I reflected on the journey from hopeful daughter to empowered woman. I hadn't just reclaimed a home. I'd reclaimed myself. No longer invisible, I stood ready to lead my own future, free at last.